Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Bliss Report. This is Dr. Sasheen, also known as the Bliss Doctor, and it is Cyber Monday. Holy Hepzibah. So, it's been Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, and now we're on Cyber Monday. By far the busiest shopping weekend of the year so far, I'm sure. Lots happening, people out and about, even though we're still in the midst of a pandemic, and there's some news about that, which I won't go into because we're all about starting over after 40 and living our best life. And I trust that all of those out there taking care of their health is part of that next best chapter. So it is Cyber Monday, and I did a post today on my YouTube channel. So if you don't follow me on the YouTube, you need to get over there and get yourself subscribed so you can catch other videos that I put out. And so that, the algorithm will know that I've got people out there listening to me. Anyway, so I did this video about Cyber Monday and the plethora of emails that I feel like we're all just drowning in right now, partially because, we couldn't really get out of the house much. So a lot of us did a lot of online shopping. So that means we signed up for a lot, and I mean a lot of things. And those emails are coming fast and furious right now because it's shopping weekend. Sorry, I had to put my phone back down and grab my notes. So you should go check that out. It's a good video. It talks about how you can regain your peace from the maelstrom of just the offer hell that we find ourselves in this time of year from all the emails that are coming in. So check it out. It's called Unsubscribe from the Emails. And I think it's pretty fun. So, but that's not what we're talking about today on Cyber Monday on the podcast. Today we're talking about the magic of starting over. Because I read this quote I was reading this weekend. And I read this quote, which I love and I thought was really apropos. So I'm going to read it. It says, every 10 years, we should all give ourselves a good kick in the pants. And that's from Edward Steichen. And I agree with that. I think people are very complacent because we get very comfortable, but we're not really comfortable, but it's more so that we're just complacent. And I know that when you reach a certain age, that there are things that you really wish you would have done. And you think about the life that you could have lived, forgetting that it's 2021 and we are living a lot longer than we used to. And so you want to ask yourself, if I'm not really where I want to be, isn't it a good time to get going, to get to that direction? So we're going to talk about what that means and some of the resistance that we put up to that and why it is magical when you really think about starting over and what that can do for your life. So again, this is Dr. Sasheen, also known as the Bliss Doctor. Thank you for listening. If you're catching me on Peloton, on the treadmill, on the go, over coffee, over tea, on your morning commute, on your way to drop the kids off, wherever you're catching me this morning, good morning, hello, and thank you. It is the Bliss Report, and we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Sasheen from So You're Getting Divorced? The podcast, here to talk to you about Anchor and the ease at which you too can launch and start your own podcast. If you haven't heard about Anchor, let me just break it down for you. Here is the 411. Number one, it's free. This is a great way to get started if you've never done podcasting, or if you're a pro and you really like the idea of using your phone or your computer to get your podcast going without all the hassle, because number two, they will distribute it for you to places like Pocket Casts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. That's a pretty sweet deal. Next, you can make money while you're doing your podcast with no minimum listenership, and that's pretty darn spectacular. So, follow these instructions. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Now, let's get back to the show. Okay, so welcome back. The magic of starting over is two things. Number one, it's the subject of today's podcast, and it's a course that I'm creating for women over a certain age, mostly over 40, because that's who my target audience is. But it's for women who understand and want to make the next chapter the best chapter. And they want to do that in a way that kickstarts them, because it can be really easy to get into your head about all the things in your life that didn't go right, didn't pan out. If you're over 40 and you're divorced recently, or you're over 40 and the kids are leaving home, or you have young kids, because I have a son, he's 8, getting ready to be 9. I can't believe it. Life is very different in my 40s than it was in my 30s. And so if you're thinking about, wow, this thing called life, I'm going to be doing this thing here for another 30, 40 years, because I don't know about you all, but if you look around, yes, there are some headlines of tragedy of very young people, but on average, the average person in the developed world, whether that's Eastern developed world or Western developed world, they're living to be a fairly old age. They're getting up there. The life expectancy is expanding as technologies expand, as quality of life expands, as, there's a true statistic, and I can't figure out where it is at the moment, but if I do find it, I'll link to it, that better education for women has increased their life expectancy. Their changing conditions for women has definitely increased our life expectancy a lot. Not being baby making machines, so to speak, and having a better quality of healthy life is increasing our overall life expectancy. Women are living longer, men are living longer, we're living better, we're living healthier, we're living more fantastic. All that means that if you don't like what you're doing at 45, then you should do something different, because in 10 years, you could be in a completely different place than you are right now. In 5 years, you could be in a completely different place than you are right now. The reason that people get resistant to this idea is because of complacency. I was having this conversation with a really good friend of mine about relationships, and how at a certain age, we want relationships. We do, but we also want our life not to change very much. So we want someone to come into our life who's more than willing to accept us for who we are, which I think is very important, who doesn't want us to have to remake ourselves in some image that they have in their heads. And I think that's absolutely accurate. But we also want them to not ask us to make any major life changes because we've lived a certain life, we've gotten comfortable or complacent, we've achieved certain things. We're in our 40s, 50s, we've achieved some things. And we want people to accept the life that we have created for ourselves, and at the same time be able to come in and love us in the place that we find ourselves, and not ask us to move. And I don't know any relationship that can do both. And I think that's true of relationships with other people and with ourselves. It is very difficult to achieve anything new if you're unwilling to break the bonds or break the chains of something that you're currently doing. And a lot of not starting over stems from the fear that my life might get worse. And I may not love my life right now, but I like it okay. And so if I like it okay, and if I do something different, I might lose this standard of living, or I might lose this way of life. And who wants to do that? And my admonition to you is, you don't have to lose anything. What change and the magic of starting over allows you to do is take the best of the life that you currently have and start over in ways that bring you a better life, not that bring you a worse life. And I really wish that there was more conversation out there about the idea that starting over, whether you're forced to or because you choose to, allows you to bring the best things forward with you. You don't have to leave those things behind. No one's telling you to quit your job if you love it and you make really good money, but maybe you want a different job. Or maybe you want that job in a new state. Or maybe you want that job in a new country. Good gracious. Nobody's holding you to where you are. No one's telling you got to leave your town. But maybe you want to leave the place that you live in that town. Maybe you need a new environment. Maybe you need new friends who understand that you're changing and you want to experience different things. Here's a good example. I love to dance, and I haven't danced in years. And as I'm looking down the barrel of 2022, what I realize is that I want more dance in my life. It's pretty simple. It's a thing that I want. It's a way in my life I'm going to start over with my health journey, and that is to reincorporate dance. Now, that's something that I let go of many, many years ago. But as I'm moving forward and I'm thinking about it, what I realize is that not only is that something I want to reincorporate, but that also is a doorway to getting back into the arts, which I absolutely love. I love ballet. I love the theater. I love live theater. I love live musicals. I'm that girl who likes musicals. But I love the whole ambience, the whole lifestyle that comes with the gallery openings, the art, the exhibits, the special showings, all of those things that the art world is kind of reviled for. I absolutely love. Part of starting over for me is recognizing that to live that kind of existence is going to take me away from some things that I do now. It just simply is. For two reasons. Number one, I don't have the time to pursue everything that I might possibly love, number one. And number two, I want the kind of life that embraces the arts and that embraces all of the things that come along with that, sitting on the committees and the boards and being a part of the scene, being in the mix. I love all of that. To do that means I'm going to have to make some decisions to not do other things. And that is one of the beauties of starting over, is that I don't have to walk away from my whole life, but I do have to leave some things behind that are simply no longer going to serve me in the life that I'm now going to build for myself in 2022. You notice I didn't say you had to blow up your existence, but what will happen is that you will move into spaces and places with new people and new experiences and new things and new opportunities, and certain things will simply get left behind because they don't fit anymore. And so much of what we're told as women is that you have to stay in a certain place for the kids, for security, because the world's a dangerous place and you can't make any really big changes, because if you do, what's going to happen to you? And the answer is, well, life's going to happen to me, because no matter what, I'm going to be 5 years older. God, Goddess, God, whoever you pray to, higher spirit, higher calling, willing, 5 years from now, you're still going to be here. So where are you going to be 5 years from now that is different from where you are right now? You could be no place different, but you could be light years different from where you are right now. Another great quote that I read this weekend was, there is nothing more beautiful in life than getting a second chance. And that came from Ron Kovic. Listen, if you hit your 40th birthday, you automatically get a get out of jail free card. So this is my gift to you. When you hit 40, you get to start over. You get to start over. In our 20s, we're really bound by our family structure, whether that's a good structure or a bad structure. In our 30s, we're starting to wiggle out of the skin of that. We're trying to figure out who we are, how to make our way in the world, how to protect ourselves, how to support ourselves, who we are, really. In our 40s, we get to finally decide who we are. We get to decide, and in our 50s, we get to live it. And it's not because 50 is a new 40 or 40 is a new 30 or 30 is a new 20. None of that really matters. What matters is realizing that every decade gives us an opportunity to assess who we are, what we want, and either continue the course that we're on or start again. And starting again means realizing that life has two sides to it. And perhaps it's time for you to flip the coin. Maybe you've been living the one side for so long that you've forgotten that there's another side to this coin. So if your life has been hard and struggle on the struggle bus, then it's time to say, I no longer want to struggle. I don't want to struggle. So what is it about my life that feels like I'm struggling? And let me flip the coin to figure out what it would be like to live with ease. And maybe ease is upscaling your life because you're struggling, because you're trying to fit into somebody that you don't really belong to anymore. You don't fit that life anymore. And maybe ease is downsizing your life, minimalizing your life, moving to a tiny home. I was watching this weekend. I love YouTube. First of all, let me just say, I absolutely love YouTube because I exposed to so many things that I wouldn't know was out there, because, the algorithm starts to read you, but I also can just put random words in the search bar and a whole world opens up to me. So I actually think I use YouTube more than I use Google for things, which is interesting, but it's two different things. For articles and stuff, I still kind of go to Google, but for YouTube, I will, for my leisure and education, some educational things, I'll use YouTube. I digress. Anyway, this weekend I was watching an Black woman expat channel, and she was interviewing a woman who moved into a tiny home. Now, I loved her home. I was just like, oh my gosh, Her house is amazing. Amazing, okay? And she spent less than $100,000 for this house. It's gorgeous. It fits her perfectly. It's mobile, but it's not a mobile home, even though that's fine. It's this beautiful tiny home. And her story behind the tiny home was, at some point you get to the place where you have to decide what's your next chapter going to look like? And are you writing that next chapter, or are you being directed by others in the next chapter? Because going back to our coin analogy, listen, you may be living on a side of the coin that you didn't intend to. You may be living a life that was never what you thought you were going to be doing, but you're doing it, but you never thought you'd be doing it. And that's because we forget that we are the actors always in our own life story, but we're not always the director in our own life story. We're not always the producer of our own life story, but we're always an actor, which means if someone else is directing and producing us and all we're doing is acting, then we're acting in the roles that we are being placed into, not the roles that we have chosen to put ourselves into. And that's a really key point, because if you're not directing the story of your life or producing the circumstances that allow you to shine, chances are you're not shining. You're not shining, because no one's going to direct and produce your life as well as you. And no one's going to cast you as the lead, the hero, the way that you're going to cast yourself as the hero. Chances are you're cast as the villain, or at least as a neutral person in your own existence, in your own story. And so as you think about your next chapter, 2022 is less than 6 weeks away. I'm excited about 2022. There's so many great things I think that are on the horizon for a lot of people. My last episode, I talked about the Great Resignation. If you haven't listened to it, you really should, about why we're leaving, where we're going, and why I don't think we're going to come back the way that we used to the workforce. But as you think about what you're going to do next in your life, have you sat down and asked yourself, who do you want to be for the next 10 years? Because remember, every 10 years, somebody needs to come along and kick you in the rump and say, hey, is this still who you want to be? Or is there somebody else that you think you could be now? I was talking last night to one of the members of my book club, because I've known her for a really long time, and we were talking about a conversation that she and I had had years ago, and we remember the conversation vividly, but slightly differently. And I asked her what was the point where she realized that her life needed to change. And she said, it was that conversation with you when you just asked me, well, do you think that's going to make you happy? And as I said to her, all I remember thinking is, really? You want to do that? It just seemed so out of character for whom I believed she was. And yet she couldn't see what I saw. And so I came into her world at that point to say, are you sure this is who you are? Or are you the director and producer of your life? Or are you just playing the role that others are directing and producing you into? And, it was a great conversation. And it reminded me, as I was thinking about today's podcast, it reminded me of how we get very offended when people change on us. We are very offended when the expectations that we have for a certain type of person to remain the same is blown up, and that person changes, and we say horrible things about how they've changed and we don't know them anymore, and I can't believe they would do this, and I can't believe they'd go off and fill in the blank. And what we're failing to understand, and what we're resistant to, is that everyone changes, but not everyone changes well. Everyone changes if they're given the space and they know themselves enough to figure out who they are and what they want. And if they give themselves the grace to recognize that change is inevitable, and sometimes we change away from other people, and we change away from the roles that we embodied, because everyone's going to change. And if you keep in mind that you've also changed, so we get really mad at people for changing, failing to see how much we ourselves have changed. Nobody that you married at 19 is the same at 49. No one is the same. No one that you married at 25 is the same at 55. A lot of relationships, people ask me this a lot. Like, why do you think relationships falter after 20, 30 years? Why do people get divorced? And I say, because they've changed. And they stayed together for the sake of the family, for the sake of finances. But when it becomes clear that the rest of your life ahead of you is looking like what you've just come through, people flip that coin because they're like, I don't want more of the same. I've been doing this now for 20 years and I've been doing it miserably or in neutral for 20 years and I want to drive. And so they flip the coin. And on the other side of the coin is a life that may not include being married anymore. Or it may include staying married but looking different. Or it may include getting married because they've never wanted to be married, but now they do. It can look so many different ways, right? It's no different than the woman waking up and deciding that she's ready to get married and have a family in her 40s, and the world going, well, you're too old. Why would you start at 42 or 43? Why didn't you start at 23? She's not what she wanted. And so she flips the coin in her 40s and says, now I'm ready for this. And she goes on to have a beautiful family and an amazing life because she's happy and she was ready for that. I find it very interesting, and I hope that you're getting some value in this today, but I find it very interesting that when we talk about being the producer and the director of our own lives, we all assume that we're in control, and we're not. And life will tell us quite quickly that you are not in control here. You are absolutely not in control here. But the thing about it is we are in control of some really important aspects of our life that we refuse to take control over. And this is what I mean by the magic of starting over. When you start thinking about the places of your life where you feel out of control, and we're going to cover that in the course. So if you're interested, you should get on the waiting list because I'm not taking very many people into the free webinar, which will be the precursor to the full course. But, if you think about why people start over, if you think about why they flip the coin, it's because there isn't that much time left because, once you realize that, yes, you have 40 more years, but do you want to spend 40 more years doing the exact same thing? I've got 30 more years. Do I want to spend 30 more years? I was listening like I said, it was a great weekend for me. I was listening to another interview of a woman who retired to Mexico, Lake Champala, I believe is where she is. And she said, she had worked in the education system and she was 3 years from retirement and she was just trying to hang in there and work through retirement, and but she couldn't do it anymore. She just couldn't do it anymore. So she went ahead and took the early retirement, went on, pulled her Social Security, and as she's living her post-retirement life here in the States, she was having to supplement her income, as a lot of people who retire here in the United States have to supplement their income, and realized that it was fun for a while. Like she was starting to turn that coin over into retirement, and it was fun to do, just odd jobs here and there, small things to supplement her income, but also have fun. But what she began to realize was that the way her life was set up, she wasn't the director and producer of her life in retirement. The income of Social Security was. And that meant that she was probably going to have to work in some capacity for the rest of her life because Social Security was simply not going to be enough to survive and live. She could do one or the other. She could survive or she could choose to live. And so she flipped her coin over and chose to live. She started over by deciding to relocate to another country, by deciding that in her retirement, while she was still young enough to appreciate it, like this woman's only 58. In her retirement, she wants to appreciate what it actually means to be retired. And after working for 40 plus years in the education system and being able to take that income and actually move someplace that allowed her to breathe and to live and to thrive and to be aware that there is another way of living, that is the magic of starting over right there. It's the realization that regardless of your circumstances or who you are or how much money you have or where you live or what you do for a living, you are one decision away from either living your best life or just continuing to survive in the one that you have. And so as we pull up into Cyber Monday, past week, and I hope that you purchased some things that fed your soul, that fed your spirit, that brought you joy, that bring you peace. And I have something on sale for Cyber Monday. It's my Raising My Vibration, Affirming Self Parenting and Relationships. It's $10 for today. It's actually $10 through tomorrow night if you want to pick it up. And because I have had a hate relationship this weekend with the amount of email that I've had to wade through just to answer one email about something not Cyber Monday or Black Friday related, I have made the sale of my ebook for this time not contingent upon you signing up for my newsletter or for text alerts from me or to get on my mailing list for anything at all. So that is my gift out into the world, is one less email chain for you to have to wade through to get the product that you've purchased. So if you follow my link, which is drsasheen /Gumroad /raising my vibration, I think is what is it. It'll be in the show notes. You can pick that up today for $10, and there's no promotional code, there's no coupon code, there's no email sign up. It's literally click the link, put in your payment information, download some good stuff, because this book is really some good stuff, and it will help you to begin getting to a place where you are using your affirmations. Because I know if you're listening to me and you're a woman over 40, of course you use affirmations. We know how to use our affirmations to get what we want. If you're not getting what you want, or you need a boost or a top up on a simple and effective way to use affirmations, like they say, you've got to make it plain, write it down and make it plain, then this book is for you. Raising My Vibration is about affirming yourself first. And if you're a parent, helping to affirm your role as in your parenting relationship with your kids, which I think is so important if you are a parent. And then in your relationships, whether those relationships are business or personal, all of them can stand from a raising of our vibration, because in raising our vibration, we start to see the magic of starting over as the second chance that we deserve. Not the one that's foisted upon us due to circumstances, not the one we're forced into by other people who are directing and producing our lives, but the second chance, the starting over, the second chance that we want, the one that we create, because we are the producer and we are the director and we are the leading person in our story. So hopefully today you will go out and make a great story. And if you are struggling to understand what it means to start over and you want to know more, please get on the waiting list for the Magic of Starting Over webinar. As I said, the webinar is going to be capped at a certain number of people. Get on the waiting list. Let me know you're interested. And the course itself will launch in January. But the webinar will give you an idea. And the webinar is standalone. So if you just want the cliff notes of what the whole course is going to be, then the webinar is the place for you. All right, that's it. Have a great Monday. Enjoy your Cyber Monday. If you're shopping, be sure to pick up Raising My Vibration, Affirming Self, Parenting and Relationships. It's on sale today for $10 only. No signups, no emails, no text messages, just $10 on Gumroad. The link will be in the bio, or in the show notes and in the bio. And give yourself a break. Unsubscribe from some stuff. Please unsubscribe from some stuff. You'll be amazed at how freeing it feels to start cleaning out your inbox. Or you know what? Just click delete and just delete all of it. Don't tell anybody I told you that. Just delete all of it. All right, that's it for today. It's Dr. Sasheen, aka The Bliss Doctor. It's my pleasure to always come and give value and to serve. I hope that you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you tomorrow.